Have you ever noticed how a memory can feel heavier at midnight than it does at noon? Same event, same person, same words, and yet somehow it presses down harder when the world goes quiet. That's not a coincidence, and it's not weakness either. It's simply how an untrained mind carries pain. You're watching Mindfulness, and if you've been searching for a gentler way to set something down, this video was made with you in mind. We're walking through 12 teachings from real Buddhist wisdom, each paired with a small relatable story, so you can see exactly how these lessons apply to your own life. By the end, the people and memories that once felt unbearable may finally start to feel a little lighter to hold. Lesson 1. Everything that touches you is already changing. The oldest teaching in Buddhist thought is also the simplest to say and the hardest to feel. Nothing stays the same. Not joy, not sorrow, not the person who hurt you, not even the version of you who was hurt. Impermanence, or anicca, isn't a sad fact to resign yourself to. It's a doorway. Think of a woman named Eleanor who spent 2 years replaying an argument with her sister, certain the coldness between them would last forever. She built her days around that certainty. But certainty was the problem, not the coldness. The moment she felt is already gone. The sister who spoke those words is not exactly the same person anymore, and neither is Elena. When you hold a wound as if it's permanent, you give it a power it doesn't actually have. Pain that feels frozen is actually flowing moment to moment, whether you notice or not. Even physically, the body that first felt that ache has already renewed itself in countless small ways since then. Nothing about you today is identical to the you who was wounded. To heal doesn't mean to stop feeling. It means remembering that this feeling, like the one before it, is already passing through you, not staying in you. Elena eventually noticed that on some days the memory barely stirred her at all, proof that even her deepest hurt was never as fixed as it seemed. Impermanence isn't only loss, it is also permission for pain to move on exactly the way everything else already has. Lesson 2. What hurts is the holding, not the loss. We often believe the person or the memory itself is the source of our suffering. Buddhist teaching points somewhere subtler. It is the grasping, the inner fist closed around what has already left that creates the ache. Consider a man named Darius, who kept a friend's old voicemail for years, playing it whenever he missed her. He believed the voicemail was comfort. In truth, it was a chain. Each replay was another turn of the same grip, another refusal to let the moment be over. This isn't about denying love or friendship mattered. It's about noticing that when we cling to what has ended, we suffer twice. Once for the loss, and again for fighting reality itself. The mind convinces itself that holding tightly is a form of loyalty, as though loosening the grip would somehow betray what was once real. But loyalty to a memory and imprisonment by a memory can look identical from the outside while feeling completely different from within. Darius eventually noticed that the voicemail hadn't changed in years, yet his need to hear it had grown heavier, not lighter. That was the signal. Loosening the grip doesn't mean the love wasn't real. It means allowing what happened to rest instead of carrying it clenched in your hands forever, your fingers aching from a weight you were never required to hold this long. Lesson 3. The memory you replay is not the memory that happened. Every time you recall a painful moment, your mind doesn't play a recording. It rebuilds the memory from scratch, coloring it with today's mood, today's fear, today's story about yourself. This is why the same memory can feel different on different days. Sharper on lonely nights, softer on peaceful ones. A young teacher named Rose once noticed this. Each time she remembered being dismissed by a mentor, the memory grew a little crueler, a little more proof that she wasn't good enough. She realized eventually that she wasn't remembering an event. She was rehearsing a wound, adding new bricks to it each time. What troubled her most was realizing how convincing this reconstruction felt. It never announced itself as invention. It simply arrived dressed as certainty, as though the harshest version were the truest one. She began testing this by writing down the memory on different days, only to find the details, the tone, even the words she recalled her mentor saying shifted slightly each time. Buddhist teaching calls these mental formations sankhara, patterns we build, not fixed truths we're stuck with. If you've been reliving something painful, know this. You are not remembering it exactly as it was. You are recreating it, shaping it slightly worse with every retelling if you're not careful. And what you create, with practice and gentle attention, you can create differently, softer, truer, less determined to convince you of your own smallness. Lesson 4. Release the need to understand why. So much suffering comes not from what happened, but from our endless search for why it happened, why they left, why they lied, why life allowed it. We treat understanding as the price of peace, as if we cannot rest until every question is answered. A man named Thomas spent years asking why his business partner betrayed his trust. Each unanswered why kept the wound open. Like a door he refused to close simply because he hadn't found the key. But some doors don't need keys. They only need your hand, willing to close them. Thomas noticed that even the explanations he imagined never satisfied him for long. He would construct a reason, feel briefly settled, then invent a new question to replace the one he'd just answered. This is the trap of endless why. It promises resolution, but delivers only more searching because the mind treats understanding as a finish line that keeps quietly moving further away. This teaching doesn't ask you to abandon truth. It asks you to notice when the search for why has become another way of holding on. Causes and conditions gave rise to what happened. Countless of them, most invisible to you, many older than the relationship itself, shaped by histories you were never present for. You do not need to trace every root to let the tree fall. Peace can arrive before understanding does, and often it must, or it may never arrive at all. Lesson 5. The one who was hurt is not who you are now. Buddhist teaching offers a strange, freeing idea. There is no single fixed self standing still while life happens to it. What we call me is a stream, always becoming, never finished. The version of you who felt the betrayal, the heartbreak, the disappointment existed in a moment that has already passed. A woman named Naomi once said, "I am still the girl who was left." But that girl breathed different air, had a different body's chemistry, a different set of thoughts than the woman speaking. She was carrying an old identity like a stone in her pocket, forgetting she was free to set it down. What kept Naomi attached to that old identity wasn't the pain itself, but a quiet fear that without it, she wouldn't know who she was anymore. The wound had become a kind of address, a place she always knew how to find herself. Letting go felt, at first, like losing a home, even though that home had never been comfortable. You are not obligated to keep being the person who was hurt. Not because the hurt didn't matter, but because you were never one unchanging person to begin with. Let the one who suffered belong to a moment that has already ended. You are allowed to continue as someone new, someone who carries the lesson without carrying the identity, someone who remembers without needing to relive. Lesson 6. Respond from stillness, not from the wound. There's a difference between reacting and responding, and it's one of the most practical teachings for anyone trying to let go of what hurts. Reacting comes from the wound itself, quick, defensive, already written before you even think. Responding comes from a stiller place. One Buddhist teaching calls upekkha, or equanimity, not indifference, but a steady clarity that doesn't get pulled by every wave. Picture a woman named Sable, who used to feel her whole day collapse whenever an old friend posted something that stung her. A photo, a joke, a memory of a friendship that ended badly. For years, she reacted instantly, sending messages she later regretted, replaying the sting for days. One evening, instead of reacting, she simply sat with the feeling. She didn't scroll away from it or drown it in distraction. She let it move through her chest like weather, rising, peaking, and eventually softening without her doing anything except staying present. At first, this stillness felt almost unbearable, like standing still in a storm she'd always run from before. Her hands wanted something to do, her mind wanted a message to draft, a comeback to prepare. But she stayed seated, breathing, and noticed something unexpected. The sting, left alone, behaved less like an explosion and more like a wave reaching shore, cresting and receding on its own timeline, needing nothing from her at all. This is the quiet skill equanimity offers. It doesn't mean you stop feeling the sting. It means you no longer let the sting drive the car. You notice the urge to fire back, to explain yourself, to relive the wound publicly or privately, and you let that urge exist without obeying it. Over time, this changes your entire relationship to memory itself, because memories only have power over you when they can pull an immediate reaction out of you. When you can feel something fully and still, remain steady, unhooked from its story, you take back a kind of authority no apology or explanation could ever give you. This steadiness isn't cold. It's the opposite of cold. It's what allows warmth to exist without being burned by it, a fire held safely, instead of one left to spread wherever it wants. Lesson 7. Nothing arises without 10,000 conditions. Nothing that happened to you, no cruelty, no abandonment, no careless word, arose from nowhere. Buddhist teaching describes this as dependent origination. Everything exists because countless conditions came together to produce it. The person who hurt you was shaped by their own unhealed pain, their own fears, their own untrained mind, long before they ever met you. A student named Ren struggled to forgive a parent's harsh words until she learned about her parents' own childhood. One starved of warmth in exactly the way Ren had been starved of it. This didn't erase what she felt, but it dissolved the illusion that the pain was ever personal, aimed at her alone. Ren began to picture her parents' harshness as a river fed by many smaller streams, an unstable childhood, an unspoken grief, a culture that discouraged tenderness. None of these streams excused the flood that reached her, but seeing them helped her understand the flood wasn't manufactured specifically to drown her. It was simply water finding the lowest path available. Seeing this doesn't excuse harm. It simply removes you as the center of someone else's storm. When you understand that actions arise from conditions, not from some fixed cruelty aimed only at you, the grip of blame loosens, and something like understanding, quiet and undramatic, begins to take its place, making room, slowly, for something that finally resembles peace. Lesson 8. Offer goodwill, even to the ones who hurt you. This teaching is often the hardest to accept because it can sound like it's asking you to excuse harm or to pretend you weren't wounded. It isn't. Metta, or loving kindness, extended towards someone who hurt you, is not a gift given for their comfort. It is medicine you take for your own release. Consider a man named Elias, whose business partner disappeared with funds that took years to recover. For a long time, Elias imagined confronting him, rehearsing arguments in the shower, in traffic, before sleep. None of it touched the man who had wronged him. All of it kept Elias chained to an event that had already ended, reliving it nightly in a theater no one else attended. The strange part, Elias later admitted, was how exhausting the performance became. He was both the director and the sole audience of an argument that never once included the actual man he was angry with. Meanwhile, life outside that theater kept moving without him, new opportunities, new relationships, quietly waiting while he stayed seated in an empty room replaying an old scene. One day, almost as an experiment, Elias tried something different. Quietly, without telling anyone, he wished the man well. Not because he deserved it, not because what he did was forgivable in any ordinary sense, but because Elias was exhausted from carrying resentment shaped exactly like a fist. To his surprise, the wish didn't feel like weakness. It felt like laying down a weight he'd carried so long, he'd forgotten it was optional. Loving kindness practiced this way isn't about restoring the relationship or excusing the harm. It is a private act, one that asks nothing of the other person and everything of your own nervous system, your own tired heart. You can still choose distance, you can still choose boundaries, but the hatred you carry for someone rarely touches them at all. It mostly touches you, again and again, every single day you keep it alive, quietly shaping your mood, your sleep, your view of everyone new who enters your life afterward. Lesson 9. Notice the 3 fires burning beneath the pain. Buddhist teaching describes 3 forces that fuel almost all human suffering: craving, aversion, and confusion, sometimes called the 3 poisons. When you examine a painful memory closely, you'll often find at least one of these quietly burning underneath it, shaping how much power the memory holds over you. Take a woman named Odalis, who couldn't stop thinking about a friendship that ended in silence. At first, she believed her pain was simply about missing her friend. But looking closer, she noticed craving, a wish that things had stayed exactly as they were, and aversion, a refusal to accept the friendship had run its course. Beneath both was confusion, a belief that something had gone deeply wrong with her personally, rather than simply changing, as all things do. As Odalis sat with each fire individually, she noticed they didn't burn with equal strength. Some days craving dominated, a longing for old routines, old inside jokes. Other days confusion took over, replaying the friendship for clues she'd missed, certain there was a single moment she could have handled differently. Naming which fire was active rather than treating the pain as one solid block made the whole experience feel far less overwhelming. Naming these fires doesn't extinguish them instantly, but it does something important. It turns a vague, overwhelming ache into something specific enough to work with. Instead of asking, "Why does this still hurt?" you can ask, "Which fire is burning right now? Is it craving for what was, resistance to what is, or a story I'm telling myself about what it means?" This simple shift moves you from being consumed by pain to observing it, which is the beginning of no longer being ruled by it. The three fires aren't your enemy. They are simply patterns of the untrained mind, and patterns, unlike people or memories, can be gently, patiently retrained, one honest observation at a time. Lesson 10. Loosen your grip on the story you've built. Every painful memory eventually hardens into a story. I was betrayed. I was unworthy. I was abandoned. These stories feel like facts, but Buddhist teaching invites you to notice they are views, mental positions we defend as if our life depended on it, when in truth they are simply one interpretation among many possible ones. A man named Cassius spent a decade certain his father's silence meant indifference. This story shaped every relationship afterward, every fear of being unseen. Years later, reading his father's old letters after his passing, Cassius discovered a man who had been terrified of saying the wrong thing, not one who didn't care. The silence had never meant what Cassius believed it meant. The story wasn't reality. It was simply the only lens he had been given or had chosen at the time. What struck Cassius most wasn't the discovery itself, but how completely he had defended his original story over the years, arguing with anyone who suggested his father might have simply been afraid rather than cold. He realized he had mistaken conviction for truth, mistaking how strongly he believed something for how accurately it reflected what actually happened. You don't have to wait years or a lifetime to loosen a story's grip. You can begin by asking gently, is this interpretation the only possible one, or is it simply the most familiar one? The one my mind reaches for out of habit rather than truth. Right view in Buddhist teaching doesn't mean forcing positivity onto painful events. It means holding your own conclusions a little more loosely, remembering that the story you've told yourself about your pain is not the same thing as the pain itself. When you loosen the story, the memory often loses its sharpest edge, not because it becomes less real, but because it stops being the only truth you're allowed to see and quietly makes room for a kinder, more accurate one to take its place. Lesson 11. Let suffering be ordinary, not personal. One of the most liberating recognitions in Buddhist teaching is also one of the plainest. Suffering, dukkha, is simply part of being alive, not a punishment, not proof that you did something wrong, not evidence that you were singled out by an unkind universe. Every being who has ever loved, hoped, or trusted has also grieved, been disappointed, been left. Consider a young man named Patrick, who believed his heartbreak was uniquely unfair, as though the universe had made an example of him. This belief isolated him more than the heartbreak itself, because it convinced him no one could understand what he carried. It was only when he began speaking honestly with others, an uncle, a co-worker, an old classmate, that he heard the same shape of pain in each of their stories, told in different words, wearing different faces. What surprised Patrick most was how relieved he felt hearing his uncle, a man he'd always considered unshakable, describe a heartbreak from decades earlier with the exact same disbelief, the exact same sense of being singled out. It wasn't that the pain became smaller. It was that the loneliness surrounding the pain, the sense that no one could possibly understand, quietly dissolved the moment he saw his own experience reflected in someone else's life. This lesson isn't meant to minimize what you feel. It's meant to place your suffering inside a much larger, gentler truth. You are not broken, you are human, walking a path every human before you has also walked. When you stop treating your pain as a personal failure or a cruel exception, something in the chest unclenches. You stop asking, "Why me?" a question with no real answer, and start asking, "What now?" a question that actually leads somewhere. Suffering shared, even silently, even just in recognition, becomes lighter than suffering carried as though it were yours uniquely and yours alone, to bear, a weight meant to be set down among others, not carried alone in silence forever. Lesson 12. Come home to this breath, this moment, now. Every memory that hurts you exists in the past. Every fear about what it means for your future exists in a future that hasn't arrived. The only place free of both is the one place most of us rarely visit. This exact moment, this breath, this simple fact of being alive right now. A woman named Isadora spent months unable to fall asleep, her mind replaying a divorce that had ended 2 years earlier. One night, exhausted, she tried something small. She placed her hand on her chest and simply noticed her breath in and out, nothing more. For a few seconds, the memory quieted, not because she forced it away, but because her attention had somewhere else to rest. It didn't fix everything, but it was the first peaceful minute she'd had in weeks, and it taught her something. Peace didn't have to wait for the memory to disappear. It could exist right alongside it, in the space of this one breath. Isadora returned to this small practice most nights afterward, not as a cure, but as a resting place. Some nights the memory still arrived, loud and insistent, but she noticed the breath was always available underneath it, patient, unchanged, asking nothing of her except attention. Slowly, the nights she needed it lessened, not because the past disappeared, but because she'd found somewhere steady to stand while it passed through. This is the quiet power of present moment awareness. It doesn't erase the past or guarantee the future. It simply reminds you again and again that suffering almost always lives in memory or anticipation, rarely in the present breath itself. When you return to this moment, gently, without judgment, as many times as it takes, you give yourself a place to stand that the past cannot touch. Not because you've defeated it, but because right now, in this breath, it isn't actually happening. This is where healing quietly begins, not in some distant future when you finally let go completely, but here now, one breath at a time, exactly as you already are. If even one of these lessons touched something in you, let it settle rather than rushing past it. Letting go isn't a single moment, it's a practice returned to gently, again and again, breath by breath. You don't have to release everything today. You only have to be willing to loosen your grip a little more than yesterday. If this brought you some peace, consider subscribing so more of this wisdom can find you when you need it. And wherever you are on this path, know this: you are not behind, you are not broken, you are simply on your way home.